All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, and everything possibly in between, welcome to what will be episode 75 of the Anatomy Podcast. Tonight is going to be a very, very important session. This is going to be, I dare say, groundbreaking for counterculture music, for band interviews as a whole, because we're not only dotting across the ocean from the United States at as it is currently 11:18 a.m. for me. We're not only just kind of budging over to Indonesia, Malaysia, any of the European countries, Madrid, Spain, or the UK. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going all the way over to Russia. We are starting our Russian chapter, and we are beginning our journey in talking with artists from those sides of the world in which maybe they're not that comfortable jumping on a podcast with someone from America because not everybody's English is so sharp or so profound. But English is indeed a very complicated language, right? Even for me, a North American, whatever, someone from the United States who was born and raised learning English, a little bit of Spanish, and now recently Japanese for the last 24 years of my life, whether it be because of dialect, new languages that are being developed by younger generations as they grow before me, right? These days, even for someone like me, English can be very, very complicated. The point I'm trying to get to is I want to encourage with this podcast session, amongst other things, that bands and artists from countries all across the planet, even if you are not so incredibly comfortable with doing a podcast because your English isn't the greatest, fear not, because tonight this is going to be an experiment. This is going to be a very, very important experience, and I think it will help truly prove and set in stone, set into concrete, right, as the foundations of so much architecture here in the US and even across the world. The foundations usually consist of concrete that just keeps things rock solid without it actually being stone. I think it will provide a very, very important start and connect bridges where languages can't. Help prove that music connects us all, even if sometimes because of the places like the places we grew up, the countries that we grew up, the nations that we grew up in from a younger age. I think that this episode will prove that doesn't matter where you're from. There are metalheads everywhere around the world. So, starting off this chapter over in Russia, which is so cool to say. Didn't think we would ever get to this point, but I am so glad that we are finally here, truly getting closer and closer to making the Anatomy Podcast a global counterculture music podcast. Tonight, we start that story with a Russian slam band called Axiomatic Dematerialization. I have the entire 3-person lineup with me tonight. And I mean, for them, it's 9:21 p.m. over in Russia. So it is pretty deep into the evening. But nonetheless, we love to host brand new artists. We love to host breakthrough artists, especially from those points in the world, because when you think of metal, when you think of rock, and you think of Russia, well, these days, even if the entirety of the band is now located in Florida, we have bands like Slaughter to Prevail, which really, really just shattered the roof as far as expectations. I mean, I have the Alex Terrible mask behind me, or at least I have a Alex Terrible golden mask behind me. But as time continues, one has to ask themselves, is Slaughter to Prevail the only prominent project emerging from the frozen Siberian woodworks of Russia? Or are there other bands? Well, tonight we answer that question, starting with, of course, Axiomatic Dematerialization. Gentlemen, how are you all doing tonight?
We are okay tonight.
Good, good. Well, it is such an honor again to be hosting you guys. I know it took us a little bit of time to finally get this session set in stone, be able to sit down, get everything figured out, as there is such a drastic time difference between us. You guys are, after all, closer to like half a day ahead of time compared to where I am right now. And one can only wonder how those time zones got organized. But I mean, hell, we've now talked as well, near the beginning, really, to bands and artists located in Australia and New Zealand, which is quite literally a day and a half later than my time right now. So, for example, it being 11:23 a.m. for me at this time, instead over in Australia and New Zealand, it would probably be Monday about like probably 8 a.m. Monday 8 a.m., which is crazy to think about. But I digress. Now, more or less, we get into part one of the Anatomy podcast. I did send Roman the questionnaire. So I do hope that the variety of questions that I'll be asking you guys tonight don't feel like such an ambush mentally. It is a lot of information to go over, but that is exactly why we do this show, is to, even if I'm not as big as Hardcore Keem, Nick Nocturnal, Galactic Criminal, Randiness, or any of these other YouTubers. Maybe you guys even have YouTubers local to Russia doing the same thing as me or any of these other content creators from over in the US, right? It is very important to me to have the opportunity when it is within grasp to go ahead and tell the stories of as many bands as possible. So now we will be doing that. We will be doing part one of the Anatomy podcast, bouncing around three different people, three different musicians that make Axiomatic Dematerialization what it is. So if I go into the document for the Anatomy podcast and we go down to this questionnaire, right? Basically, what I'll be having you gentlemen do is I will have you go ahead and we did it earlier, more or less during the front to back session, right? You guys introduced yourself, you told us your name. So essentially, whether through Google Translate or through Roman, it's really up to you, gentlemen, person by person. What I want you guys to do is go ahead and introduce yourself, tell us your name, tell us what you do for the band, tell us what city you grew up in, and maybe a hobby outside of music that you love doing, or maybe even what you do for work right now.
Еще рассказать. Okay. So, the axiomatic dematerialization bands.
You're
I'm
good.
sorry.
No worries.
Members. Kirill, he is founder and drummer of axiomatic dematerialization. Sergey, he is vocalist, and Roman, guitar player of the axiomatic dematerialization. I think that we should start from Kirill.
Yes.
Ну, расскажи, что ты... Расскажи про себя что-нибудь. Kirill, he was born in Moscow. He played drums for 12 years. Ну, рассказать про то, что ты вот у Новика там это, брал уроки. Вот это.
Какое-то время просто вместе в одной комнате, скажи, так сказать.
Kirill, for some period of time, was rehearsing and gets some practice with Eugene Novikov from Solar to Prevail in one drum room. In one drum room, yes. Какие у тебя хобби?
У меня хобби никаких, а практик.
Kirill's hobby is practicing the drums. He is a man of the perfection. He always do for 100% perfection. So his hobby is to sharpen his skills and beer sometimes.
Бирсон.
Beer? Yeah.
Что еще про тебя сказать?
Ну, спортом занимаюсь обычно. Что
Yes, going to gym sometimes. Это да.
What is your beer of choice, Uriel?
Какое пивко любишь?
Лагерь светлый.
Light beer, lager.
Okay, lager. Okay, cool. Sweet. So I mean, of course, by all means, let's go ahead and start with the founding member, right? Let's learn about where Axiomatic dematerialization came from. That's such a mouthful for most people. I know it is. Just like Axiomatic dematerialization. It's such a long name, but I love it. And it's very intelligently organized, right? But nonetheless, Yorio, thank you for introducing me kind of on a more surface level, right? As if you are standing before a class in elementary school. Now, I think what will be really, really important is that we learn as much about you as possible. And this is usually what we do on this podcast. So I think, Uriel, what will be really important is that we go, with Roman's help, of course, as far back as possible, right? And what I want you to do is I want you to take about 10 to 20 minutes to tell us about what makes Uriel of Axiomatic dematerialization. How did your story start as a drummer?
Да. Вот с чего ты начал?
Ты запомнишь или будешь по предложению?
Не, давай, расскажи, а потом я уже изложу.
Лет в 16 какое-то время слушал группу «Рамштайн»,
Мгм.
и в один момент меня снилось, что надо пойти заниматься. Ну, с этого начался путь.
Мгм.
Очень
Ну,
долго играл сначала джаз, потом в один момент познакомился с Женей, он тогда играл в группе «Каталипси».
давай я вот сейчас до этого момента переведу, а потом дальше
Да,
продолжим.
давай.
Kirill started from еще раз 16, да?
16.
From 16 years. He listened to Rammstein and he decided to play drums. So from this band, I think it was his inspiration to play drums. Then Kirill played jazz music, yes, and little. And then he was met with Eugene Novikov. Да, when he was playing in Catalepsy band. Yes.
You know Catalepsy band?
Yes, I'm pretty sure I do.
Mhm.
I'm pretty sure they are currently signed to Unique Leader Records. If not,
Yes.
they used to be.
Так, продолжай.
Затем какое-то время играл 5 лет. Ну, я думаю, что нет смысла перечислять. Просто играл разные жанры. От белок-металла, маткор, слэминга и дэс-металла, дум-металла. Проиграл в разных жанрах, сыграл с многими группами, с Сион, да, то есть играл в жанрах, так сказать. И в один момент просто все надоело.
Да, это я знаю. Я могу сейчас вот рассказать, да, то, что знаю.
И на основе своего опыта выступлений я понял, какая музыка больше всего раскачивает, именно поэтому решил создать группу.
So I think that drummers not only in Russia but in the whole world are very не то что важные. So, I think that Google Translate will help me. Востребованный. So that drummers are in demand in every place of this world, not only in Russia, I think. So Kirill was playing in a lot of bands in different styles, different genres, like deathcore, slamming, death metal, and doom metal. And after this как опыт будет? Experience, he decided to found his own band, taking best practices from the other bands and как-то внедряя типа. Да, сейчас. Translate. Сейчас.
Don't worry, don't feel under pressure. Like
Yes.
if you need to, just take your time with Google Translate and
Yes,
I'll just
yes,
edit out like the more silent chunks. Like that's completely fine.
And he was implementing these best practices into axiomatic dematerialization. Ну,
Наверное, еще что добавить можно из всего того, что сказал, что очень много идей, которые зарождались до появления аксиомы, они не воспринимались такие глубоко всерьез, и это была основная точка старта со злостью даже какой-то.
Kirill says that his ideas that were implemented to axiomatic dematerialization later, they were not taken seriously in his previous bands, and this moment was the starting point. It was like motivation to start his own band, to доказать, я забыл, как будет. Сейчас. Yep. To prove that his ideas are very good.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
Mhm.
So essentially there were creative differences that
Yes,
occurred
yes.
with his prior band, and
Mhm.
because the Pats creatively because there was such a big creative difference, eventually he would depart from his prior band, whether it be Catalepsy or any of the other projects he was involved with. He decided to start Axiomatic Dematerialization, and
Yes,
then
but
the
I have to clear some moment. Kirill was not in Catalepsy, but he was. Рассказать, что he was invited to this band after Eugene Novikov was invited to Slower to Prevail.
okay.
Я очень долго думал, я думал около 2 месяцев и принял решение, что я не стану играть, хотя я очень люблю.
But yes, Kirill thought about this about 2 months because he likes the music of Catalepsy, but he decided to create to found Axiomatic Dematerialization, his project.
Fair enough. Okay. And I mean, nonetheless, that is pretty cool to hear about that because of your skills. You were offered that position, but maybe perhaps because of other projects you were involved with before that had that creative divide as far as trusting
Типа у вас творческие разногласия были в предыдущей команде.
Right. Because of that creative divide, you decided to just start your own band. That way, you and you alone, right off the start, would, well, because it's your band, you kind of have complete jurisdiction and authority over the creative process.
Yes. Kirill is the main ideological barrier. I don't know how to say it right, but the most of ideas of tracks were придумать. Created, yes, by Kirill.
Sweet. So obviously, like because maybe back when you first started and maybe even up until now, maybe there isn't as big, or in other words, in more dramatic words, maybe there wasn't as massive of a metal or rock scene specifically in Russia compared to other countries in the world. Because of that, like Roman said, being a drummer and being able to play all these different styles, right? Maybe that is the reason you were pulled in so many directions. So, other than Rammstein, what made you decide that you wanted to become a slam drummer instead of a deathcore drummer or a drummer for any other subgenre?
Kirill said before that this genre slam is very groovy, and it has the most groove potential. After his experience with other genres. Ну, расскажи, в общем, про свои... Сейчас я еще раз прошу. What Kirill has to say about his references in this genre, in slam, like other bands. He типа рассказать, наверное, про группу надо. Типа какие группы тебя вдохновили?
Рамштайн и сказал как про слэминг, про
Да.
старт. Именно какие группы вдохновляли, на каком этапе жизни сначала.
Сейчас,
или как это влияет на аксиому.
Сейчас я еще раз прошу. Can you repeat your the last question?
Yes, of course. So, I mean, essentially, you did answer it. Because what I was meaning to ask is, other than like Rammstein, were there any other like what? Why did it end up becoming slam that you wanted to be a drummer for, right? For that genre, and maybe perhaps are there any slam bands that ended up getting you interested into the genre?
Не, в принципе, которые тебя вот этот жанр привели.
Ну, все перечислять.
Ну, вообще, вот самые же знаковые для тебя.
Можно сказать, что с Рамштайна я практически сразу перешел на Discord.
Мгм.
Это были Whitechapel, учился Green Suicide Silence. И затем очень долгий период дедкора был, где-то в году в 12-м. Я щелкнул группу Abnormal Putridity, Каталепсии. И как-то вот где-то с 12-го года началось вот это вот все. Я слушал много музыки, но вот референс на от Рамштайна я прыгнул в Whitechapel, учился Green Suicide Silence. Потом пошло уже...
Пошло уже более такое.
Yeah, I heard Whitechapel, Suicide Silence.
Yes. Что-то еще такое. Ну да.
В 2012 году я пошел на концерт Каталепсии и услышал Abominable Putridity,
Abominable Putridity.
Yes, как раз.
Yeah.
Если не расстаюсь,
So I think that you understood what he said,
yes,
even if you don't speak Russian.
Right. Yes.
Kirill was this Rammstein, but in 2012, yes, 2012 year. Ну, короче, да. He was listening. He started listening to deathcore bands, and then he after them in not long. After not a long time, he started listening to slam bands like Catalepsy, Abominable Putridity, and he was it's Extermination Dismemberment. Yes, he was played in such a band as Abnormity, slamming brutal death metal.
Okay, sweet. So far, we've been able to conquer question 1 with Kirill. Question 2, he more or less answered, but he mentioned a band. He mentioned one of the first bands he got into He mentioned the slam and deathcore bands he would later get into. Now, one question I always have, because usually when it comes to people getting into music, and especially the genre that they will eventually create for, there's usually a person that shows them that music. So my next question for Kirill would be if there was any person who continued showing him slam and deathcore, or if there was anybody at the very beginning that maybe even showed him Rammstein, or did he find Rammstein on radio?
Типа, кто тебя знакомил с этой музыкой? Вот, может быть, был кто-то, кто тебя вот с этим знакомил, ну, скажем так, кто внес определенный вклад в твой музыкальный вкус?
Я думаю, что да, можно сказать, что у меня не было человека, который указал мне, вот смотри, есть Whitechapel. Не было. Это просто щелкнул в самом, я увидел.
Ну,
клип
понятно.
The Six Out, по-моему, был. Нет, это был End of Flash из New Era of Corruption. Мой старт, я просто попал на песню End of Flash. Whitechapel End of Flash in интернет. И все, и с этого понеслась жара.
Ну, понятно. Kirill says that there was no person that affected to his musical tastes, but he met these bands in the internet. He said that Whitechapel.
End of Flash.
End of Flash.
Song New Era of Corruption album. Альбом was for me, I think. Знаешь, что сказать еще? У меня, как максималиста, всегда было желание слушать тяжелее, естественно. И это дошло как планка сама вот.
Kirill says that he is a maximalist. I don't know if this word. Yes.
Yeah.
And he always had сейчас желание, не помню, да. Wish, yes. He always had a wish to listen the most heavy music, the heavier, and
right. Yeah. So he had an intention, he had a mindset, a goal to listen to the heaviest music available to the public, and then one day create that.
Yes.
Cool. Sweet. Fantastic answer to that question. Let's see. So more or less, we kind of sped run past maybe the scene that he was involved in, right? You mentioned before you translated for him pretty recently that because of how small maybe the Russian metal / death metal, deathcore, slam scene was and is still, right? We mentioned these other projects that he was involved in, these opportunities that he had before him, and instead he decided to start his own band, and here we are. So we can kind of we can fly past question 3, quote, the scene, right? So, I mean, the only thing I think would be missing from that set of questionnaire would be, quote, are there any local heroes that are currently climbing the ranks that are from Russia that Kirill knows personally?
I have to clear this question. If I understand you right, Kirill has to say some famous persons that he knows personally or something else.
So maybe here's an easier way to ask this. Are there any Russia local metal bands that were small back in the day when he was first getting started as a drummer, being in high demand? Everybody's like, hey, we need to get Kirill as our drummer, you know? Are there any bands like that who are now climbing the ranks, who are getting popular that he knew before?
Типа, звали тебя куда-то вот в такие еще банды?
В какие именно?
Ну, типа, как катали все.
Ну, один раз мне позвонил Паша Горбатов, пригласил меня в Майоту. ну, как известная Discord русской команды, да. Но там Марк Миронов ответил, он долго не отвечал, и поэтому они обратились ко мне через админа. Я согласился, но Марк им ответил, и они его в приоритете взяли. Так, сейчас мне звали в Майоту. Ну, вот я после Новикова, когда он ушел из ТП, пошел в Obscure Vacation, это тоже можно посмотреть.
Да.
И,
Ну, этот
VR
еще.
Obscurity.
Да,
VR Obscurity, да, это где гитарист, можно упомянуть тоже.
да.
Отлично, Дима.
Seems like there's a lot.
Backdoor to Asylum еще меня звал.
Прикол.
Антоха звал Backdoor to Asylum, но это не совсем такая крупная.
Ну, все равно, как бы, Антон
Жихарев.
достаточно, да, известный.
Ну, вот эти 4 банды.
Okay, the first, the band that is famous in Russia.
Все Слотер привел как связующее звено, можно сказать.
А что, Миша?
Миша Петров, гитарист, создатель Майот.
Ну да, точно.
А Дима в Air Obscurity тоже.
Да.
Связующее звено.
Действительно. The Russian band that is very famous in Russia, deathcore band My Autumn, that он же там на гитаре, да, играет?
Да, Миша Петров?
Да.
Да.
It's this band is the band of Mikhail Petrov from Slaughter to Prevail, that bass player in Slaughter to Prevail. Kirill was suggested to play in the band.
2 years ago. Два концерта.
2 years ago, but after the phone call to Kirill, the other drum player was invited.
Mark Mironov.
Right.
Марк Миронов.
Ну, так можно сказать.
Понятно.
Группа Betraying Martyrs сразу.
From the Betraying the Martyrs band.
Oh, shit. Okay.
Марк Миронов.
Then, что там дальше? Второе. Да. Вот там этот тоже. Кто там был раньше на барабанах?
Там Новиков до прихода в СТП должен.
А он там играл или нет?
Да, он учил партию.
After that, the Obscure of Acacia.
Yes.
The Russian band.
Ricky Hoover Ricky Hoover from Suffocate.
Oh, Suffocate. Okay.
Like Obscure Vacation too. I know.
He liked this band. Kirill played in that band. Потом это, да, We Are the Obscurity. Yes, so Kirill has experience playing in the band We Are the Obscurity.
Yes.
That is the band of Dmitry Mamedov from Slaughter to Prevail.
Right.
And he also was invited in the band Backdoor to the Asylum of, maybe you know, Anton Zhikharev, Insane Death Machine. He is well known as the YouTube bass player. He is a very skilled bass player. If you don't know this man, I recommend you to search him on the YouTube, because he is one of the best bass players in the heavy music. And he was recorded bass in Absolute Elimination of Existence.
Okay. Sweet. Right. I remember because I've gone to you guys' public domain website, right? The one that most people will have access to once they click on the link in your bio on Instagram. So I've definitely seen the extended team for Axiomatic Dematerialization, and there are a lot of people. One can only hope that next time, right, if you guys feel that this was a prominent session, this was a productive, right, an efficient podcast session, I think next time what would be really cool is if we get everybody from the team, if we're able to.
Okay.
Yeah, and basically get everybody just involved, because I think that would be really, really cool. just everybody like on that roster, not even just the official band members, but the fill-in bass, producer. I think that'd just be really cool overall. So thank you, Kirill, for providing the answers that you have to those questions. And thank you, Roman, for helping me translate his answers. Being that we've now more or less conquered the scene, quote, questions, right? I think the only like kind of brand new thing I would want to try to get in there is, at least compared to back in the day when Kirill was in very, very high demand and everybody wanted him as their drummer. Does he feel that the deathcore, slam, metal scene in Russia has grown in a really good way? Or does he think personally, does he think that Russia's metal scene is still kind of small and it needs to grow a lot more?
Понял вопрос или
Да,
объяснить?
я думаю, он спрашивает.
Типа после вот того, когда вот там тебя и туда звали, вот с нынешней точки зрения, как ты думаешь, вот сцена в России, она типа стала больше или наоборот?
Куда меня звали, они
Не,
развалились.
Ну да. Нет, тут в принципе про саму сцену тяжелой музыки, вот типа deathcore slam.
На данное время растет эта культура или...
Да.
Сложный вопрос. Очень много групп появляются и исчезают, потому что это очень сложный путь. И мы являемся одной из групп, которые представляют эту культуру, и мы считаем, что мы, как это правильно сказать, но мы точно надежда и опора роста этого жанра в России, пока мы существуем. А за остальные группы сложно сказать, потому что они появляются, пионерят и исчезают, потому что эта музыка...
Ну да, действительно требует прям такой...
огромного усилия и труда, и терпения, чтобы это все преодолеть.
Kirill says that it's a hard question because bands in such genres are... Сейчас забыл слово. Появиться.
Like maybe there are still not that many bands, but it's definitely growing.
No. That's
Sorry.
That's a large number of bands appear. They make some music, and after that, they simply disappear.
Oh.
Because it's a very hard way in Russia to make the band in such genres that will be in demand, that will it requires a lot of discipline, a lot of как правильно сказать, типа вложение бабок, наверное, тоже там требует. Ну, короче, it requires a lot of aspects that large number of bands are not bear on shit.
No, you're fine. You're fine. Take your time, man. No pressure.
Не выдерживаю. That they can stand it.
Right.
They can stand their requirements.
Right. Okay. So essentially, in Russia, you have a couple artists, you have a couple people who want to be musicians. Hell, some of them are even able to get an EP out, a couple of singles, or an album. But because certain aspects in Russia also make it a little bit difficult, some musicians are not disciplined. Eventually, they will just fall through the woodwork. They will kind of disappear into nothingness, and that's what kind of keeps Russia's metal scene spotty, is all these bands who want to do so much, but then they very quickly learn what it means to be in a band, and they just disappear.
Yes, something like that. It's very hard to work on the official in the официальное место работы, типа. In the official place of work, and
Yeah.
play in the band. Always get rehearsals. Always sharpen your skills. It's very time-consuming
Yes.
kind of practices.
Fair enough. Okay. And I mean, yeah, that's definitely something that both Russian metalheads and American metalheads can relate on, is that, because of because of lifestyle, because of trying to keep an actual job or also keep a social life, keep connected with other
Yes.
bands in your local area, across the country, and then how music is definitely more or less a hobby until you explode and
Yes.
become rock stars, no matter the genre. A lot of people aren't able to conquer that wall and truly understand that obstacle. They can't get past it, and that's what causes them to disappear. That's completely understandable, because that, I think, that speaks volumes on a worldwide scale, on an international scale. So, like I said, ladies and gentlemen, music connects us all, and the aspect of trying to make money off of it, well, that is about the same for all the countries and all the places around the world that you can possibly think of. And that's also why we do this podcast, is to kind of help secure that mentality that we're all struggling as artists. We're all trying to have a financial spine, a financial backbone. But unfortunately, when a band is meant to be 4 or 5 people and you're only one person, right? And you're financially investing into it. Say it's just a one-man project until you find your musicians. Well, you're carrying the weight financially of 5 people. And therefore, I completely understand how many projects have disappeared. And more importantly, how many bands I've even hosted on this podcast, or who I hosted at one point, and then they disappeared as well over here in the United States. I've had at least 3 artists that I've hosted that were wanting to create, and unfortunately they fell through the cracks because they had to change their priorities in life. So
Yes.
we all
Kirill
understand that
has
struggle.
something to say.
Yes.
Еще тут про группу, когда был вопрос,
Ага.
хотел лишь добавить только о том, что многие группы, которые начинают на старте, они всегда думают, что какая-то поддержка с нее будет, лейбл, или, может быть, менеджер появится сам, но этого не происходит, и многие мечты быстро рушатся, и они из-за этого разрушаются. А никто не может взять на себя вот эту вот ответственность, чтобы музыку распространять. Потому что без ее распространения ничего не получается, и все эти важные мечты попадают, особенно в таком жанре, в котором мы играем.
Ну да. Так, сейчас еще раз. Какие слова хотел посмотреть. Kirill says that a lot of bands, when they on their starting point, they assume that there will be some financial support from the outside, like maybe
Bands.
managers, maybe some labels, but there is part of the reality that doesn't allow them to realize their talents, and they probably разочароваться. Я чуть забыл слово. Да, почти вспомнил. Так. They are just disappointed.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. Reality can be oftentimes disappointing when it comes to trying to be in a band. And then even if you do get big, like signing onto a record label, it's a lot more complicated than most people think, is what Kirill is trying to say.
Yes.
Fair enough.
But not only signing to the label and not signing to the label, but the trying to support the band financially by themselves. They just cannot do it.
Fair enough. Yeah. And that is one of the many harsh realities of trying to be in a band, trying to be an artist and make money off of it, is that at first you don't make anything off of it. You have to be able to invest. And again, you have to have a actual career, an actual job that's helping you provide a spine, a backbone that helps support and carry the weight of that project. And I appreciate that we're all on like the same wavelength. And again, that just ends up being true these days for a musician, no matter what part of the world you're from. So, Kirill, question 4 in part 1 would be, are you a gearhead? So I know you're a drummer. What, like, do you study the gear that you have?
Короче, спрашивает, ты, ну, gear это вообще оборудование? Вот, ты задрот по оборудованию? Типа вот по своим тарелкам. Ну, короче, я могу сказать, что да, ты прям не только по тарелкам, вообще по всему.
I can say from my point of view that Kirill is, as I said before, he is a man of perfection, and of course he is a gearhead, not only in drums but also in some records, maybe mixing and guitar gear things. He knows these aspects. I want to say that he is a gearhead.
He's definitely a gearhead, yeah.
Yes.
Because I mean, especially being the founding member of the band, well, if you're not going to be the vocalist, the lyricist, you instead would be you'd be everything else. You would be the heartbeat of the band, which for me, that's the drums. And then the guitar, that's the voice of the band. That's kind of the blood running through the vessel, right? So with Kirill being the founding member of the band, you got to understand how to navigate a lot of gear. That way your future musicians, they aren't caught so off guard. And maybe by studying gear, there's a less of a chance of axiomatic dematerialization. Like, just like this is him imagining it or thinking about it early on, right? Just like, well, if I understand the gear, maybe there's less of a chance of AD, acronym for axiomatic dematerialization. Maybe there will be less of a chance that AD falls through the cracks if I just study everything I can and know what pedals we're using, know what specific type of guitar and guitar pickups we're using, as well as, of course, knowing what type of drum set I want. So, if being that he is a gearhead, what is his current setup?
Установка, да.
Там
Может, прям ты сам говоришь.
Там перформер Birch Pubinga.
Cool.
It's Star Classic.
Star Classic set, yes.
Star Classic set.
And what is your dream setup?
Dream setup.
О чем мечтаешь, да.
На этом и мечтаю. This is my dream setup.
What's that?
This is my
Dream setup.
Oh,
dream
so the
setup.
current setup you have, like that's what you've always wanted. Okay, cool. That's always good, is when you're able to, like, you know, acquire all the toys that you've wanted as a musician. So thank you for answering that. Kirill, question 5 would be, what lessons have you learned as a person or a musician, and how do those lessons drive you, or how could they apply to others trying to accomplish what you have so far?
Can you repeat
Yes,
this
of course.
question, but a
Little complicated.
Yes.
Yeah, that's fair. So what lessons have you learned as a person or musician? That will be like part 1 of that question.
Ну, типа вот какие выводы, какие уроки ты сделал как личность, как музыкант? Lessons after what?
So like lessons after, you know, being a drummer for these other bands, being
Играть.
offered opportunities,
Мгм.
making his own band, and maybe after creating and putting out this album, like what lessons has he learned as a musician or as a
Ну да.
person?
Я понял. Ответишь за меня, да?
Ну, я думаю, что сказать, то, что ты
Ответ.
знаешь, что, чего ты хочешь, ты знаешь, как это делать, вот, и ты просто делаешь это.
Да, и многие группы, короче, просто много людей не сходятся во мнении друг с другом, из-за этого группа рушится сразу.
Ну,
Можно
это да.
сказать, что
Да.
типа люди на начальном этапе должны расходиться, если понимаешь, что не идет. И очень многие группы пытаются существовать как на 5 лет. Вот, мы существовали в абсолютно разном направлении. Люди, мы просто тратили время.
Да, я,
И
наверное, с этого начну.
Просто нужно как можно быстрее найти своих людей, либо идти в сольное плавание и искать попутчиков, что произошло. Там,
Ну да. Да, я попробую сейчас.
типа, пошли все нахер.
Kirill says that the reason of most bands disappearing, the one of the reasons that the persons, the members of bands, they have different views on the music, on the развитие, забыл слово. Band development. They have different views on the band development and some personal views, so they only can differ from each other. And he says that people have to understand these. Сразу забыл, как говорится, сразу. Straight away at once, and if you understand that you will not work with these people, you have to leave these bands and start searching your the people that сейчас единомышленников забыл, короче. Soulmates. Ну, типа, да.
Soulmates.
Like-minded people, like-minded persons. Are you here?
What, pardon? I'm sorry.
He says that you have to искать. Search like-minded persons and
Yes.
or make one-man projects and search like-minded persons after that.
Yes.
And it's the case of axiomatic dematerialization.
That's how it started.
Yes. И что ты в самом начале еще говорил? Я начал со второй части и в начале... то, что я хотел сказать, то, что I think that Kirill knows what he wants, how the band need to develop.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you aren't able to accomplish certain things with a band of people who are here, I'll go ahead and this will be my turn to go ahead and do this. I kind of want to see how this sounds anyway. So Russian to English. Let's see. It will be very important to find like-minded people as opposed to working with people who are so creatively different that you might as well be in different projects anyway. Let's see how this sounds.
Yeah.
And then trying to figure out how to...
Переводчиком пользуюсь.
Oh, right. Yeah, I'll go ahead and restart that.
Будет очень важно найти единомышленников, а не работать с людьми, которые настолько творчески разные, что вы все равно можете участвовать в разных проектах.
Did that translate pretty well?
Вот до этого говорил про Enemy, про вот другие.
Ну да.
Yes, all of us are agree with this.
Fantastic. Cool. And I honestly love that we have Google Translate these days.
Yes.
Like, imagine how difficult it would be even back in the 80s. Just like, what did he say? And like, it could even get into a more aggressive conversation. Like, what did you just say to me?
I think that the internet is that the internet allowed us to learn English language as well, because I don't imagine as I'm sitting with a translator like a book, and I
Yeah.
try to find the word or something like that.
No, fair enough. I dude, I honestly, I think that's one of my only wishes is that I could speak all the languages, just like
Wow.
boom, period. Like
My
communication.
wish is to play on the guitar like that, every guitar part
Fair enough.
of
Yeah.
every band.
Yeah, that would turn you into like Megamind, You'd have so much information, you wouldn't have room in your brain for all of that.
Yes.
But that's the beauty of music, is that there's always something new to learn.
Yeah.
So question 6, I'll go ahead and translate this over. Let's see. What are 5 different artists, albums, singles, or people that you think pushed absolute elimination of existence to its final state, and why?
Сейчас как переведет?
Let's see.
Какие 5 разных исполнителей, альбомов, синглов или людей, которые, по вашему мнению, довели абсолютное уничтожение существования до его окончательного состояния и почему?
Group reference.
You mean some references? Yes.
Yeah, like music in that category, what inspired, what would be absolute elimination of existence for Kirill?
Создание.
Какие группы?
Да.
ABM, Putridity, Extremation, Dismemberment. Нет.
Возможно,
Нет,
еще какие-то
нет.
конкретные треки можно.
Нет, нужно заново, потому что запутаюсь сам. Группы в основном.
Ну,
Да.
хорошо, там что угодно из музыки. Может быть, люди, что угодно.
Are there too many?
Не понимаю, о чем речь.
Он спрашивает, может, это слишком много опять?
Не. Ну, мне проще референсы сказать, что они
Давай,
являлись основным толчком.
Мгм.
Что так проще было.
Да,
Ну,
да.
опять же, Abdominal Putridity, Extremation Dismemberment, это моя любимая группа, Facelift Deformation, мне очень нравится. Странная гитарная музыка. То есть, можно сказать даже проще, что очень многие группы из жанра Slamming Brutal Death меня вдохновляют в первую очередь гитарная музыка. Я и барабанщик, но у меня больше всего фокус внимания на гитарных пассах.
Сразу скажу это. Kirill says that his inspiration in such bands from Slamming Brutal Death is in guitar music, not in drum music at the first place, but the guitar music. He likes the guitars in such music. So his list of bands that he was inspired: Abominable Putridity, Extermination, Dismemberment, Facelift Deformation. Может быть, еще что-то?
В принципе, все.
That's the main backbone of his inspiration.
Okay, cool. And Kirill, I do appreciate you. I do appreciate him providing the commentary and telling his story a little bit.
Ага. Ну, в общем, говорит тебе спасибо за твою историю.
Спасибо большое.
So I do think that being that Sergey ended up being basically, he's the newest member, right? I think Roman, I think it is your turn to kind of like tell us as much of your story as possible. And from the very beginning, just like we did with Kirill.
So you want me to start?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Слушай, может быть, я не знаю, тебе ж ехать надо, да?
Ну, я похожу в 12, через час уже должен. Да.
Ну да. We have to reorganize our conversation because we are now in my house and Sergey has to ехать, я уже забыл. Go his home
Yeah.
during this hour. So it will be good if we talk to him and
Yes.
you understand what I have
Yes.
to say.
Yes. Of course. Yeah, no problem. So, basically we're going to be centering on Sergey before he has to leave.
Yes.
Okay, understood. So, in that case, the same exact way that we have been asking Kirill those first 6 questions, right? Sergey, go ahead and do the same. Provide your answers. And first we would start off by asking how you first got into being a vocalist. Take it away.
Okay. When I 14 years old, I listened to Slipknot and was a huge fan on this band. But after some time, I wanted to expand my knowledge on music and looked for bands that played harder and angrier.
Angrier, yeah.
Angrier, yeah, sorry.
No, you're fine.
As a result, I meet Cannibal Corpse and was scared by the video Devoured by Vermin musical clip. Yeah. For me, it was too hard and incomprehensible, but it became very interesting and I wanted to listen to more death metal bands. Later, I find introduced me to bands such as Carnifex, Chelsea Green, Suicide Silence, and I fell in love with the deathcore genre and wanted to sing just like my idols. I started learning extreme vocals myself with the help of training videos on YouTube.
Cool.
Нормально.
Okay, I studied fast chord scream and high scream, guttural and big squeal for 2 years. There was a group called Eternal Refuge in which I sang for 3 years, after which the group broke up to the members moving to other cities. And in 2023, Kirill invited me to join the group as a vocalist and recommended a vocal teacher to improve my vocal skills. And on February как 3 число будет? 3 февраля.
February the 3rd.
And on February the 3rd on this year, I was officially introduced and a vocalist of Axiomatic Dematerialization. Although I had been I had been absentee since July 2023. Now I can sing. Now I can sing like Alex Terrible from Slaughter to Prevail, and I probably know all the extreme vocal techniques.
Cool. I do appreciate your introduction so far. You telling us about your vocal roadmap and how you ended up getting into being a vocalist, the bands that you were familiar with, and essentially what led you up to February of this year with the release of Absolute Elimination of Existence.
Yeah.
So next question would be, was there anybody who got you into music? Like whether family members or friends?
Или тоже как Кирилл?
My friend, как будет тоже?
Тоже?
Да. Two. My friend, to call name Kirill.
Not me, да?
Not you. Okay.
Стоп, подожди.
Ты не.
А, да?
Кирилл
А,
сказал.
No, not this
А,
Кирилл.
другой Кирилл.
И in 20 именно в эту музыку, именно в слэм,
Ну, в принципе, в тяжелую, я думаю.
тяжелую музыку. Блин, как бы короче, скажи то, что на канале i1 я видел клипы Slipknot, и тогда я захотел как раз таки
понятно.
слушать им такую музыку.
It was... Блин, даже не знаю, как
i1
сказать.
Channel,
Никто про нее не знает. Ну, я имею в виду там.
Music Channel.
Yes, there was a Russian music channel that транслировали, забыл как сказать. Ну, короче, that showed some Slipknot music video clips, and Sergey saw them, and he started listening to this music after he saw it.
С телевизора?
Типа, да.
Music TV show.
Мгм.
Okay, cool. Let's see. And then I think, let's see. So who got you into music? It was another gentleman by the name of Kirill. They got you into Slipknot, and you also found a YouTube channel, like Russian metal. Sweet. Are they still around to take the credit? Are you still friends with this other person by the name of Kirill?
Типа, все еще друзья? Давно уже нет.
Мгм. No, they
No.
are not.
Еще лет 10 назад общаться еще.
Well, 10 years ago, they
Communicate.
stopped. They communicate. Хорош.
Right. They stopped talking. Then Kirill of AD ended up replacing him.
Yes.
Типа, на тебя поменял.
Я могу типа говорить, но просто я запинаюсь.
Kirill introduced me to Carnifex, Chelsea Green.
Вы понимаете, что не я, да?
Да. Other Kirill.
Мы не дружим, мы
Other
просто в
Kirill.
группе играем. Это другой Кирилл.
Fair enough. Okay. And same way I asked Kirill a little bit ago, growing up as you got into, okay, I'll go ahead and translate this one for sure. Because it just sounds cool too. So let's see.
Я только сейчас увидел маску.
Growing up
Да.
as you got more into metal and rock, or possibly even other genres entirely, did you have other people in school or in your local community who helped you push forward?
Ну, кстати, да.
Let's see.
Когда ты рос, ты больше увлекался металлом и роком, или, возможно, даже другими жанрами. Были ли у тебя другие люди в школе или в твоем местном сообществе? Кто помог вам двигаться вперед?
Вот, типа, в школе были какие-то такие вот приколюхи?
Как тут записывать?
It's weird to hear me translate it as a woman.
Можно записать?
Надо, наверное, дать доступ какой-то. Сейчас, погоди.
Давай твой переводчик, Ром. У тебя работает так?
Сейчас попробуем. Сейчас,
Да, вот.
бахнем.
Вот.
Выберите язык.
Да, действительно.
Пошутил,
Some
с какой
technical
языком
issues.
для чего?
No, you're good. No worries.
Сергей
I can always edit
wants to
Попробуем.
record.
На самом деле, именно путь знакомления с рок-музыкой я начал с группы «Король и Шут». Это российская панк-рок группа. Вот. На самом деле, сейчас уже стала очень популярной. После этого как раз я познакомился с творчеством группы Slipknot, и мне очень сильно хотелось узнавать все больше и больше тяжелых групп. После этого я слушал, помимо Slipknot, и Cannibal Corpse, Vader, познакомился со Slayer, Пантера, что еще, Bloodbath, и много других death metal групп. Все эти группы я находил на сайте Metal Tracker, искал как раз-таки там и просто в интернете по жанру. Слушал также и грайндкор группы, такие как Gutalax и Сакаурум. Ага, Клэн мне пишет, по-моему, да?
It's a lot.
Давай я расскажу. Sergey started his way in the heavy music. Нормально. After Russian well-known punk band, they were like legendary, iconic for the Russian punk scene. Даже не панк, сложно объяснить, что это не такой типичный панк. Ну, короче, да, пофиг.
Нет, это
Ну, типа там фолк еще, да. With some folk and the Russian folklore influences. Not the average punk band. After that, Sergey listened to Slipknot, and in Kirill's way, he wanted to discover for himself the band that will be more heavy. And after that, he started listening to some thrash metal or death metal bands like Slayer, Vader, Pantera, or like that. After that, he continued to listen more heavy bands and went into deathcore music. So we are here.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Sergey, for answering that. Next question would be, in a very similar way that I ended up asking Kirill, are there any local heroes that are currently climbing the ranks in your eyes that you knew when you were younger?
Кирилла.
Am I saying his name wrong?
No.
Okay, cool. It sounds like it feels like I am, but
Очень похоже на то, что я в конечном итоге спросил любопытно. Есть ли какие-нибудь местные герои, которые в настоящее время поднимаются по служебной лестнице в ваших глазах, которых вы знали, когда были моложе?
Короче, да, вот, может быть, пересекался с тем, кто сейчас, типа, крутой, а раньше был не таким крутым.
Ну, типа на старте давать вот всякую.
Типа вот как, да, Кирилл там с Новиком, например.
Языки.
Нет?
Честно.
Как же чувак из Soda Street, там, нет, ты же говоришь, вот вы общаетесь, там, как друзья, например, нет.
Какой-то поднялся, блядь.
Ну, можно сказать, да, давай я вот скажу.
Гитарист, который был в моей группе, сейчас играет в
Мгм.
одной из таких, типа,
Да.
популярных групп.
Sergey has not the same опять забыл слово опыт. Experience like Kirill.
Right.
He says that the guitar player that he was played with now playing in Russian street metal, же, да, что-то типа того? Street metal, beatdown band that widely known in the narrow circle of people.
gotcha. Okay, cool. And okay. Continuing upon that question, really. Let's see. Were you in any bands or band projects before Axiomatic Dematerialization? And if you were, what caused the fork in the road that had you depart from those projects?
Где вы были в каких-либо группах или проектах до Axiomatic Dematerialization? И если бы вы были, что стало причиной развилки дорог, из-за которой вы отошли от этих проектов?
I think more or less you did answer this question before.
Все то же самое.
Ну, то же самое, да.
На самом деле, это была моя единственная группа, в которой я играл, точнее, был на вокале. Это...
Спусти-ка. Или, да, вот.
На самом деле была единственная группа, в которой я пел, это Eternal Refuge. Там как раз-таки я вот именно пел 3 года. После, из-за того, что у меня все участники группы разъехались, мы больше не играли. И как раз-таки Кирилл меня позвал уже в Axiomatic Dematerialization, где я стал и вспоминать свои навыки по экстрим-вокалу и развивать их дальше. Так развиваю по сей день.
Домой.
Короче, я не знаю, как это...
Короче, ой, зря ты удалил.
Да,
Ладно, давай я переведу. Короче, то, что ты сказал, то, что ты играл в одной группе, вот,
Да, у
не
меня
такой
была
большой.
одна группа, где я именно занимался именно стрим-вокалом,
Мгм.
ну, это дедкор группа.
Мгм.
Далее я, в принципе, не пел. Вообще я
Ну
не
да,
занимался этим, потому
это
что
я
я
помню.
постоянно только работал, строил свою карьеру.
Sergey says that he was a member in one deathcore band,
Eternal Refuge.
Yes. Where he was a vocalist in extreme vocals. After that, he was not played in the bands. He was
Build my career.
he was building his career, but after a long search of the vocalists, Kirill invited Sergey to Axiomatic Dematerialization, and Sergey, it was the даже не знаю, как сказать, типа, это был мотивация, можно сказать, типа, то, что это была мотивация для тебя, вот, чтобы ты дальше... It was the motivation for Sergey to practice some extreme vocals techniques, and he says that he practiced them during this time, always practicing.
Cool. Fantastic. Question 5, I think because we're going to go ahead and just skip over question 4 because I know he's meaning to head home soon. And I completely understand it's getting a lot later for you guys now. Let's see, I'll go ahead and translate this for him.
Сереге надо бежать.
Okay.
Долгий, видимо.
По альбому там было, что повлияло там на альбом, грубо говоря.
What lessons have you learned as a person or a musician, and how did those lessons drive you, or how could they apply to others trying to accomplish what you have so far as a vocalist?
Сейчас я тут расхуячу.
Какие уроки ты усвоил как человек или музыкант? И как прошли эти уроки? Drive you или как они могут применяться к другим, пытающимся достичь того, что у вас есть как вокалиста?
Короче, то же самое, что спрашивали Кирилла. Вот,
Yeah.
какие выводы ты сделал? Там, что можешь посоветовать?
Единственный вывод, который я сделал, это усердные тренировки. Тренировкам нужно уделять не час, не два, а порядком где-то по 3 часа в день, если у тебя именно есть такое свободное время. Вот, чем больше тренировок, тем ты будешь больше свой скилл прокачивать и развиваться именно в этом плане. Ну и, в принципе, я советую всем больше тренироваться и смотреть больше обучающих видео и общаться с теми людьми, кто именно занимается этим вокалом. Опять это хуйня, что ли, блядь? Хоть что за хуйня?
Не знаю, какие-то проблемы, короче. Видать, он русский язык плохо распознает. Давай, я сейчас...
Скажи, то же самое, типа, тренировка, блядь,
Ладно.
Today says that practicing is the main that it's the main aspect of you becoming the professional performance artist, and it takes more than 1 hour. It takes 3 hours daily. Even if you have this amount of time, you have to practice. Что ты там еще говорил?
Ну, вообще должен быть именно человек, который тебя на этот именно путь, как говорю, наставляет и корректирует все вот эти твои движения, ошибки. То есть должен, как говорится, как сенсей должен быть какой-то по вокалу.
In the case of vocal performance artists, it has to be a person who leads you as a sensei, like sensei that can tell you about your mistakes or some invalid moments.
Yes. Sweet. And I do appreciate you providing that response, Sotage. It is definitely all about practice when it comes to being a vocalist, and any creative medium that you're wanting to one day make money off of, you have to be able to practice it. Now, of course, most importantly, I'll go ahead and provide this statement real quick. Because of time constraints and being that I completely understand that you will need to go home, this will be the last question. And if possible, at another time, I would love to sit down with you as far as lyrically dissecting the new album. But let's see, I'll go ahead and piece that together because that's already a lot.
Из-за нехватки времени, и поэтому я полностью понимаю, что вам нужно будет пойти домой, это будет последний вопрос. И, если возможно, добавьте еще раз. Я хотел бы сесть с вами, чтобы обсудить тексты нового альбома, но...
But, let's see.
Вторую часть.
Last question for you, Sergey. A little bit different than what I asked Curiel as well. Let's see. What are 5 albums you constantly listen to? 5 artists that you follow and have followed for a long time? Or possibly even what are some people that have helped you pave the path that you have so far as now the vocalist for this band?
Какие 5 альбомов ты постоянно слушаешь, 5 артистов, за которыми ты следишь и за которыми следишь в течение долгого времени? Или, возможно, даже какие люди помогли тебе проложить тот путь, который ты идешь сейчас как вокалист группы?
Давай тогда по предложениям сейчас будет.
Давай.
Так, если говорить про группы, то... Так.
I know that's a lot of pressure.
Так, как сказать, если взять группы?
Speaking about bands, about groups.
If speaking about groups, such as bands and Hollow Prophet, Shadow of Intent, Wired Murder, Covidectomy.
Covidectomy?
Ну,
Yes.
yeah.
Covidectomy.
Nice.
Slamming brutal.
Ну, если, да,
Yeah.
Yes, metal. Ну, если говорить уже прямо про вокалы, про все остальное, типа про сам слэм.
Speaking about vocals.
Speaking about vocals, yeah. Вообще надо было говорить. Сейчас. Если за которыми постоянно слежу, таких, наверное...
Ты предпочитаешь разнообразие и тебе...
Ну, да.
Он имеет в виду то, с чего, может быть, изначально шел путь, что-то была какая-то банда, которую ты там заслушивал. Или так
Да
не было
нет, я
никогда?
сейчас ты только слип слушал, так раньше все, блин. Если сейчас нет, он говорит, типа, какие банды есть, там 5 альбомов, либо 5 групп, за которыми я постоянно слежу, типа, за новостями. Ну, тогда, типа, Hollow Prophet, Shadow of Intent, кто еще? Body Snatcher.
Body Snatcher, yeah. Hell yeah.
То есть таких еще, блин, прямо крутые, за которыми прям вот конкретно. Блин. Да нет, я уже не слушаю, блядь. Только старые альбомы какие-нибудь.
Так, там из таких еще присловных темно, кого слушаю.
Ну вот, просто скажи, кого больше.
Feeling Flash.
Peeling Flesh?
Yes.
Fair enough. Good stuff. Cool. So you have provided like way more than even like 5 characters. And it's always great to hear that even across the globe, so many bands and artists kind of fell in love with the same bands and artists. Like the ones that they listen to, they're kind of all the same. And then, every now and then it's different, but for the most part, we all collectively enjoy the same thing. Greetings from the future. I'm just kidding. The original session was recorded, after all, in March of last year, as per reference from the beginning of the actual podcast session, talking about how, or during the front to back session, really, which we will be cutting out of the Anatomy Crosscast for episode 89. Simply said, at the time of recording this, I spaced off at the tail end of the session that there would be absolutely no need, see what I did there? There'd be absolutely no need to record any more time for the session for their latest album that we would be going under the skin of, that being The Absolute Elimination of Existence. Majority of the lyrical work was done by the former vocalist. So, with that being said, I reached out to them recently. They proceeded to let me know, whatever you have, go ahead and upload it. So I said, you know what, fair enough. Let's go ahead and get this uploaded. And hopefully next time, with Sergey at the forefront of lyrical writing for whatever they decide to write next, whether it be an EP or an album, I do hope we have the opportunity to have them return once more, maybe even this time do an early album listening session for their next major effort. And if they happen to get any more members, hopefully we can get them on too. But until then, this has been Sean Cross, the primary host of the Anatomy Crosscast, and we'll see you later.